All right, I think we're live. So welcome everyone to another Matt Maran Motoring live stream here on the Matt Maran Motoring YouTube channel. Hope you're all having a great weekend here. Thanks so much for stopping by. So like all the other usual live streams here, we're going to go for about 2 hours or so. I'll give priority answering for anyone who's a member there with the green usernames or anyone who does a super chat or a super thanks. They always get that priority answering. If you'd also like to get that priority answering, definitely become a member there with a link in the description. And I see we have a bunch of people have already joined in here. So thanks so much to Anthony and Brian, Wheatman, Lancewoff, Kevin, Danny, B. Mitchell, Michelle, and Raphael, Fook, and Jazz and Justin and Michael. Thanks so much for stopping by, everyone. And I see Anthony says, hey, everyone, I saw a Lyric today. First one. That SUV is quick. Enjoy the new ride, Matt and Beth. Thanks. Yeah, we still are loving ours. It's great. It's also a great camera car doing the rolling car-to-car shots that we do. It's a smoother ride, so it actually has made that footage a little bit smoother with the early filming we've done so far of that. But yeah, we really love it, and I'm glad you saw one today. And Brian says, my spot of the week was a 1964 or 65 Ford Mustang convertible in red. Very nice. Wheatman says, good evening, Matt, from a very hot Northern California. That's pretty crazy, but wow. Yeah, I'm curious how hot it actually has gotten there. It's pretty hot over here too. High 80s here the past few days, and haven't had any rain for about a week and a half or so, I think. And so a little dry out there. But Lancelot says, good evening, everyone. No spots this week, sadly. My spots this week, I actually just tonight saw a Cadillac STSV, which is pretty rare. I saw a two-door first-gen RAV4, which is always fun to see one of those. And then what was the other one I saw? I saw like one of the old 80s like Pontiac Firebirds, like the Formula ones that had like the very smoothed over front nose. I can't remember exactly what those ones are called, but I saw one of those. And that was, I think, all of my main spots this week. Although yesterday, I guess a little bit more than a spot, I was following behind a Ferrari F12 Berlinetta and a Ferrari 308 that was burning a lot of oil. But we were following behind both of those for about 5 or so minutes, and that was definitely fun. Unfortunately, the 308 was holding the F12 back a little bit, so the F12 wasn't going too fast. I think they were trying to stay together, so I didn't get to hear that glorious V12, but it was still cool to see it nonetheless. And let me see. And also, Lancelot, thanks so much for a very generous super chat tonight. I really appreciate it. He says, my week has been good. Hopefully yours has been good too. It has been a good week. Yeah, I actually did my first car consultation here on Friday with, sorry, I have a little little bug that was crawling on the camera lens here. Anyway, got it. Yeah, I had my first car consultation. That went really well. I have another call tomorrow with someone else. I'm excited for those. Yeah, it's been a good week, very busy and excited. You know, it was cool to kind of do one of the little mini weekly updates on Friday, doing the news on the Charger. I was really happy that embargo ended up being on a Friday, so it was maybe a little nostalgic for some people to be getting a little bit of car news there on Friday. We'll see tomorrow. You know, Ford has their big EV announcement. I think it's in the morning, and I don't have any early info, so I'm not sure if I'll actually have a video ready to go, or if I'll even do a video on that. It depends on when they actually send me over materials and whether I can, not be behind. But if they've, got a bunch of other people getting content ahead of time, I might not bother. But that should be another cool little news bit here. Let me see. But yeah, thank you so much, Lancelot, for the super chat here tonight. And I hope you have a good week here going forward too. Let me see. So Kevin says hi as well. Danny says hello. I drove alone Thursday and drove my younger brother Friday and Saturday. Interesting spots are a Jeep Comanche and a 93 Pontiac Bonneville SSEI. The Bolt is getting close to 76,000. That's awesome. And nice spots there too, especially, the Comanche, I think, is probably the more rare one, but the Bonneville is going to be cool to see too. So that's awesome. And B. Mitchell says, greetings from the less balmy upper Midwest. If you can call it a spot, I did a photo shoot on Thursday of a 1941 Lincoln Continental convertible that I'm helping market. Restored in 1986, but still great. That's awesome. That's really, really cool. And hopefully it's one of those older restorations that is still nice, because I know some of those 80s restorations, they really did some questionable stuff that made sense at the time, but putting 80s GM seats in some of these things, and doing velvet and doing crappy stereos and all those other questionable 80s thing. Some of these people have put in like 80s steering wheels back then. They put like modern steering wheels in these things and stuff. There's some of those old restorations where it's just like, oh, it just is a real turn off. But hopefully that one was actually restored to original and none of the other stuff. That's awesome though. It's very cool. I always love the way those old Continentals look. And let me see. B. Mitchell says, Danny's making him feel old. He said, one of my best rentals was a Bonneville SSEI that I had for a week working in Western North Dakota. Lots of room for it to run, comfy, well handling, and poised. Just a nice car. Nice. That's awesome. You were able to experience one of those new. Vishal says, hello, all my interesting spots for tonight. A Mark II GTI, never seen one before. Nice. And a Jeep Commander. That's awesome. Yeah, the Mark IIs, those are definitely very rare. Yeah, I don't think I've seen one in a long time, like definitely 5 or 10 years at least. Maybe I've seen one at the Vintage Grand Prix that we have here in Pittsburgh, but it's been several years since I've even been there. That's a very nice spot. That's awesome. And B. Mitchell says, I think the local agency for the rental company got it from a local dealer that it was rotting on the lot with no real interest in it. Interesting. Yeah, I guess some of those more performance niche ones maybe weren't hot sellers. I haven't looked into the sales figures for those as far as whether they were actual commercial successes or not. Danny's got no news about his own car just yet. Yeah. Well, I hope you get something cool here, whatever you end up getting next year. And Danny also says, I cut off on Thursday, but a first-gen Jeep Compass and honked at them because they thought a yield sign was a suggestion. Then they threw their hands up at me like I was the problem. Entitled people. Yeah, well, welcome to driving. Everyone thinks they're the greatest driver in the world. And it's really, really funny. Everyone else is an idiot when you're driving. That's like a universal truth. People that are going slower than you are grandmas, and people are going crazy. They're going faster than you are crazy people. And it's it's always that same kind of perspective. It's kind of funny. Yeah, it's so hard to get people to like. Yeah, like I said, everyone just always thinks they're in the right. Anthony says, I did see a few other cool cars this week. 2 newer NSXs together. Nice. Then a whole group of Hellcats on the thruway. That must have been a very loud group. That's awesome. And let me see here. Michael's asking my favorite car of 2025. If we're talking like cars that I've reviewed, it's got to be the Aston Martin Vantage. That's definitely been the most special one so far this year. Yeah, nothing else comes close. I mean, lots of other really good stuff, but that one, hands down. My first Aston press car, my first review in a modern Aston as well. The last Aston I did was, I think it was a 2007 or something like that. So yeah, that was definitely the best one. And Dave's asking, hey man, I'm trying so hard to find a good 4-door sports car under 30 grand. Do you have any recommendations? Something reliable too, please. Thanks. Love your channel. I appreciate that, Dave. As far as under 30, I haven't looked recently at pricing, but the first thing that jumps to my mind, it would be like a Chevy SS sedan. Those have the phenomenal manual, a really good chassis. It was kind of that first generation of that Alpha platform that then developed in the same thing we got with CTS, and then now in CT5e for the other evolutions of that platform. But a lot of the great goodness baked in there. And I mean, that might be even comfortably under 30. I'm not sure. If you want something even cheaper, I think Pontiac G8s are great. There's a 4-door, really sporty rear-wheel drive thing. There's always the Chargers that are a great choice as well. If that's something that you want a V8 and you want something that just has the character and the shenanigans, but you don't need all the handling of the SS Chevy, then I think Charger's great too. I mean, there's a lot of stuff. It comes down to exactly what you mean by sports car, what exactly you mean by like, do you need rear-wheel drive? Do you need all-wheel drive? There's a lot of options. It's a very wide net. So yeah, I mean, if you're going import, obviously you can get WRXs under 30 grand. You can get, so many different various sports sedans. I love a Elantra, and you can find one of those for, under 30 used at this point, or new for 35 if you're willing to flex a little bit. And they're just phenomenal cars. Even like Civic Si, maybe not a full-blown sports car, but a really fun little thing for right around 30 grand, even new. But yeah, there's so many to pick from. Again, I'm going to do shameless plugs here for where my impromptu suggestions kind of fall short. Is I do these car consultations now. I just started here in this past week where, if you want to book on mattmaranmotoring.com, we can have a one-on-one call, and you can kind of give me some info of exactly all the context of what you need from your four-door sports car under 30 grand. It's a little bit more context, brands you like, brands you don't like, things you're considering, other things you're interested in, and that can kind of help me to hone down to exactly what might be the best pick for you. So that's going to be the best way to get the best advice. But if you want to give me more context in here too, feel free. And I can also just keep, spitballing some ideas here. More than happy to do that too. But if you want the most specific, best recommendations from me, that's the best way to do it. Also, though, you can always send me an email or Facebook message, Instagram DM, whatever. And I can also kind of, do a few messages back and forth there as well to help, kind of give you a few options, whatever works for you. Let me see. Fastline saying hi, and he says loves the shirt. I appreciate it. And Yanel says, "Hey Matt, been a while. Got some exciting news for you though. Oh, I'm excited to hear. Let me see while we're on there. Maybe let me see. I don't see any follow-up message, but I will keep an eye out to hear your news. I'm very curious, but thanks so much for stopping by. And hope you're doing well." Raphael says, "I totally enjoyed the Miata drive. I drove one once and it's very tight, but great fun." That's awesome. I'm glad you got to enjoy one. I think it's always a fun experience for everyone to at least drive a Miata once in your life and see what it's like, just the lightness, the simplicity. And I'm glad you like the POV video. I think hopefully you guys are enjoying, I've been trying to work on the audio quality. The video quality, I think there's still a little room for improvement there, but hopefully, you guys are pretty happy with how those are going. They will turn more and more into night videos as the sun starts setting sooner, because usually I can get out to film those, once our daughter's asleep. And, so sometimes, it's going to be later here as the sun starts to set sooner going into the fall here. And I know a lot of people have asked for night drives. They want to see the ambient lighting and things like that. So I think it'll be fun. I'll always try and switch it up. I'm going to try and do some, middle of the day stuff, and those morning drives. I did a couple of those as well, I think, so I'm going to be experimenting, but I'm glad you guys are enjoying those. And I'm glad the view counts are getting a little bit better on the past few. So hopefully there is actual interest in that, and that's something that I can keep doing, because I do really enjoy those. I'm glad some of you do too. Vishal says, "Oh, I also saw an old Thunderbird convertible. I think a 60s model. I don't know, Ford Classics all that well." Yeah, so I mean, you can kind of figure it out as far as, the real small ones are the ones that were in the late 50s there, or the, I guess, mid 50s, 58s when it got the back seat and got a lot bigger with the fins. And then early 60s is whenever they call them the bullet nose birds, where it had like that kind of came to a point there in the front fenders, round singular taillights in the back again, little fins, but a little bit bigger. And then you go into the later 60s and they start getting bigger and bigger. And like the mid 60s, they had like the three. They're actually, I think, maybe B. Mitchell can correct me if I'm wrong. I think Thunderbird was actually the first vehicle to have sequential turn signals, because the 65 Thunderbird introduced the three squares, and they go beep, beep, beep. And it was like, it was a really cool thing for the 60s to have that. And yeah, so Thunderbirds are great. I love Thunderbirds. I'd love a Thunderbird someday. It's always been kind of one of my top classics to dream about having someday. That's awesome. You saw one. And Dylan says, "Hello, saw an old Mercedes SL 320 in nice condition. Not sure of the year, but it was getting quite a few looks." That's awesome. And I'm glad to see people actually appreciating those kinds of vehicles too these days. It's great. And thanks for stopping by, Truck and Car Guy, as well. And Justin says, "Just saw a Cadillac XLR earlier at the gym. Surprisingly, see a good amount of them here in Columbus." That's awesome. The XLRs are not common around here, but I see a few of them as well. It's kind of funny. I think that's just like a vehicle that, again, if a lot of people are starting to appreciate them, they just want something that's not a Corvette that's similar, though. I think it's a really cool thing that's available, and I'm happy that people are enjoying them and appreciating them. Maybe Mitchell says, "Mike went wonky there for a bit. Don't lean forward." All right, I'll try and stay where I'm at. Hopefully doesn't screw things up. And let me see. Vancy says, "Hey guys, my spot was a stock Evo 10 MR plus an MC20. First time seeing one of those in person. That's awesome." Yeah, I mean, I don't think I've ever actually seen an MC20 on the road. I've seen them in a couple of car shows, but that's it. It's a very nice spot. And also stock Evo is a very rare spot too. So that's two impressive spots there for you. Congrats. That's awesome. And Vishal says, I took my Jetta in for the first service yesterday. Got to check out the new Tiguan they had in the showroom. It was pretty nice. That was just the SER line. Can only imagine how nice the SEL is. Yeah, SEL, I mean, yeah, the real wood on the dash and it's very nice, but the lower trims are also great. You still get, all that same great tech and everything. Really, really nice vehicles. Again, I just wish they'd fix the throttle. And Fastline says, did you see the all-new Durango Hellcat jailbreak for 2026? I'm too in love. Yeah, it's cool that they're going to keep it going. And yeah, that you can really kind of customize them a lot. And yeah, it's because they're keeping that in production, and we know that, they're ramping up V8 production for other stuff. I think, my bet is, I mean, this hasn't been confirmed, but I'm pretty certain we're going to see Ram TRX come back, very soon. It's too easy to do. And they've even said, years ago, like, don't roll out TRX coming back. And I think that's going to be probably, an impending announcement at some point here, sooner rather than later. And Kraken says, did you almost forget, Matt? I never got the notification. I just scheduled it later. We kind of got home late here this evening, so I wasn't able to schedule it as early as I usually do. But it should have came through, around 8:30 is when I scheduled it. So you should have gotten one then. But, YouTube, sometimes you never know. And B. Mitchell says the 41 Lincoln Continental was a state-of-the-art restoration, and they drove it to all of the concourse and shows that attended. No trailer. That's awesome. It won a metric ton of awards from all the major clubs. That's awesome. Very, very nice. Yeah, it's really cool. I hope you got a ride in it at least, even if you didn't drive it. That's a really cool vehicle to be around. And Raphael says, I haven't made a live in a while. Last week I saw a first-gen Mitsubishi Eclipse GSX. Very nice. Always fun to see an Eclipse because I feel like there's very few of those left on the road, and I'm always happy to see them. That's awesome. And Fuchs says, took a corner quick this week when the oil light came on for a split second. Check the dipstick. 1.5 quarts low. Brought it to the dealer, and they found out drain plug was loose. Phew. Well, I'm glad they caught it before it just completely bled out. That's crazy. Yeah, drain plug's one of those things that I always was paranoid about with gas cars. Even the Bullet, like, I don't know about you guys. I'm just a paranoid person, I guess, as far as like always worrying about stuff on cars. But like every time I get an oil change, I'd like be driving for the next few miles, like smelling intensely to like I'm always worried, like, did they tighten the drain plug all the way? And like look in my rearview mirror, like see if there's any like oil drips like happening, like, because I never trusted that they did it perfectly. Like I really should have just done my own oil changes because I feel like I'm one of those people that only really trust my own work. For a while there, I actually had my buddy who was doing it for me, and so that gave me peace of mind. But whenever I just have to take it to a random dealer, it was always a nerve-wracking kind of thing. Because a drain plug is such a simple little thing, and it just seems like there should be more security to like the literal lifeblood of your vehicle than like a little screw. It just seems kind of crazy to me that they haven't had more redundancies built in there. I'm sure there's the aftermarket you can find more secure things to make sure it's locked on there or whatever. But drain plugs are so fickle because you can't also over tighten it, because then it's like that can also not be great. So it's like you got to be just perfectly right, like not too tight, not too loose, and then this thing's just like dangling inches from the ground and is the entire thing keeping your car running. Pretty much. I'm glad it worked out okay for you. That's like my worst fear in gas cars, and one of the perks of our EVs now, I don't have to worry about stuff like that. But glad it worked out for you. And if Vijay says someone has a bright yellow Lotus Emira in my neighborhood, sounds so nice with the V6. Yeah, those are so great. I'm so happy they've kept it going with the Emira too, or with the the Evora. Or okay, you're talking about Emira. I was thinking of Evora, but yeah, Evora had the V6, and now in the Emira as well. It's great to have that motor still going. And Dave says, yeah, man, thank you for the info. Maybe my wife and I could set up a consultation for the near future. I'd love to help you. Yeah, if you guys would like the help, more than happy to help. Yeah, I'd love to chat with you. But Danny's saying, here's a bit of info of the 1984 to 86 Toyota Camry turbo diesel. Engines were a 1.8 turbo first 2 years, then in 86 went to a 2-liter turbo. And transmissions were a 5-speed stick or 4-speed auto. It's a pretty quirky thing. Yeah, that is that's crazy. And yeah, I never even knew they made a diesel Camry. So that's a fun little bit of car trivia there. That's awesome. And this is exciting news. My wife and I are welcoming a baby girl into the world any day now. Well, that's awesome. Well, yeah, congrats ahead of time here. And yeah, it's very exciting. It does seem like there's I don't know if it's just around me or what, but there seems like there's a little bit of a baby boom here because our neighbors are having a baby any day now. Our other friends are having a baby here in about a month. And a lot of babies here happening, so that's awesome. Like, that's gonna be so fun. Congrats. And I'm not sure if it's your first kid or not, but especially being a girl dad, I love being a girl dad. It's the best. And yeah, you're in for a great, wild, but so much fun ride. And it's really a special experience, so enjoy every moment, be as present as you can, soak it all in. Just yeah, because it flies by too. And it's crazy how our daughter's 4, and it's just like the time warp is crazy. So definitely just taking every second you can, take lots of pictures, lots of videos, all that, of course. It's the best. So I'm so excited for you. And yeah, congrats again. And also best of luck to your wife there. Hope it all goes smoothly and everything is great there, and a nice easy birth, because that's always an unknown as well. But I hope it goes great. And that's awesome. Let me see. Raphael says, I've been thoroughly enjoying the drives. I'm so glad you like them, Raphael. That's awesome. Thanks for the feedback. That's why says he's loving them as well. You've got the recipe down to an art. I appreciate that. Yeah, I am learning. I'm getting better and better at them. The Miata was the first one where I finally figured out I like having my steering wheel down really low when I drive. I like, not having it up high. Like, I really like having it super low. And that's something different than I think a lot of other people. Now, I've noticed if you look at before the Miata, the other POV videos, the steering wheel usually cut off the gauges a little bit. I didn't love the way that looked on camera, but there was just no way to get the camera's already like right here on my head, so like having it any lower would actually block my vision. So like, I was like, well, how do I like fix this? And so I'm like, I'm just going to raise up the steering wheel. So in the Miata, I mean, it wasn't like crazy high, but I was driving with the steering wheel higher than usual. So that's a tip that I've learned to now do going forward, is raise that steering wheel up, make sure that I can see the gauges clearly there. And then that way it's a more accurate POV for, you guys to be able to actually see the full gauge cluster whenever I'm driving. So I'm getting better little by little. And I think, yeah, the audio is better now. And yeah, I'm going to try and work on the video next. I think that once we get to these dark ones, especially, it's going to get a little grainier because this camera doesn't do great in low light. So if these keep getting decent amounts of views, then I can justify spending the money on a better camera to do some better low light stuff. So that's going to probably be something I'll do here soon, hopefully. Let me see. B. Mitchell says, yeah, the 65 T-Bird was the first with sequential turn signals. Yes, I got my trivia question right here tonight. And B. Mitchell said it was supposed to be the 64, but the bugs weren't worked out yet. Interesting. I didn't know that fact. That's cool. Well, thanks for sharing your wealth of knowledge with us here, B. Mitchell. And Lancelot says, my late father had a 66 Thunderbird when I was a kid. The sequential turn signals were super cool. That's awesome. So you maybe actually got some rides in an old Thunderbird. That's awesome. Yeah, I've never ridden in one, but they seem like they'd be super comfy. And Danny says, the most classic car in my family is my grandfather's white Chevy Corvair. Well, that's awesome on its own. Yeah, any classic is cool. And yeah, no classics whatsoever in my family. I wish someone had one. That'd be really fun. Vishal says, Acura ADXs have popped up real quick in my area. I see at least a few of them per day. How about you? So actually, my neighbor bought one like across the street. So I see a black ADX every single day. So yeah, she bought one, and seems to really like it. I haven't talked to her about it, but yeah. So I mean, it was like, probably a month or two ago. It was like, I think a week or two after I had my press car. So she got a really early one. She had one of the first ones. So she must have been excited about it. And and got on a list or got one of the first ones on the lot there. But yeah, I think it makes a lot of sense. ADX is really, especially, as an enthusiast, I know a lot of us were probably disappointed because it wasn't fast, or it just wasn't special enough or something. But like I said in my review, I think it's a really solid vehicle for the actual buyer they're going for, who doesn't care that it's slow, who doesn't care that it shares some stuff with the Civic. They just wanted just an Acura that is ton of legroom, ton of cargo space, and it's really good for that. I mean, we went home, or we drove to the beach in that vehicle, 6-hour drive, packed with all of our beach stuff, and it fit. I mean, obviously we're only a family of 3, but like, to fit all your beach stuff for a week and everything in a subcompact crossover. Whenever I was scheduled for that vehicle before going to the beach, I'm like, oh man, we're gonna have to pack light. I'm not gonna be able to fit hardly anything in this little ADX. And then it's like, no, it's really big for a subcompact crossover. It's really, I think, well executed. And it's another vehicle. It's the same thing as Integra. Every enthusiast when Integra came out hated on Integra. And Integra is selling really well. It's one of the best sellers in a segment, which isn't saying much because that's a pretty poor selling segment, but like, it's doing really well. And I think ADX is going to be the same way, where, all of the people online, complain about it, but real world sales, I think, are going to be really good for that car. Other than my neighbor, though, I've seen a couple. I haven't seen a ton yet. It hasn't popped up quite as fast as like Grand Highlander or Lexus TX. Like those two, it's like the second they were on sale, I saw like 3 a day everywhere I go. And like 3 of my neighbors have Grand Highlanders, within like a quarter-mile radius. It's like everyone grabbed them up really quick. So I think it's not quite Grand Highlander hit, but I think it's going to be a good hit for Acura. And Danny says the car that has been sitting the longest in my family is a 1998 Chrysler Cirrus. My uncle's car he drove in college, sitting since the early 2000s. I'm unsure if it's an i4 or V6. Well, I don't know how much you like working on cars, but that could be a fun first car. If you can get it running again, get it fixed up, that could be kind of cool. I mean, because you don't see hardly any of those on the road. So putting one back on the road, if possible, could be really fun. But that's awesome to have it just kind of sitting there. It's awesome. I don't know. I'm still like strangely nostalgic for some of that stuff from Chrysler and from all the American manufacturers, honestly, in the mid 90s. A lot of that stuff just has been forgotten, but they're cool cars, I think, for their time. And Fook says, kicker is the dealer did my oil change 4,500 miles ago. So, I mean, I guess it was a very slow leak then. If you went 4,500 miles before you lost a quart and a half, then that, or it just worked itself loose, which again is what I'm worried about, is that drain plugs can do that sometimes. But yeah, I'm glad your motor was okay, hopefully. That's close. Raphael says, I'll be near you next Sunday at Kennywood. Hopefully not too hot. It's been over 90 for days here. Well, yeah, that's awesome. You're coming up to Kennywood. I'm not sure how far of a drive that is for you, but Kennywood's great. We haven't been there yet this year, but we're hoping to make it soon because, we got to get there. Because once you get into the fall, they don't staff as many of the rides. And like Keyland last year was a disappointment because they had like a rotation of like 2 or 3 people working 10 rides or something. And so like stuff was closed intermittently. And it wasn't fun. So definitely recommend, going, like you said, going next Sunday, going here while it's still prime summertime. It's definitely the way to do it. So enjoy your time at Kennywood though. That's awesome. And enjoy Pittsburgh if you hang around and do anything else. Weekends are always so busy for us, but hopefully you have a great time here when you're here. And definitely go for the potato patch fries if you haven't already planned on doing that. Theodore, thanks for stopping by. And Vishal says, it's funny, after we bought our TX, 4 more people bought them. It's like we started a movement in the neighborhood. Yeah, I really think, for a lot of people, that was probably the case where they had no clue. It wasn't on the radar. They don't pay attention to cars. And then they're like, oh, wait, there's finally a big Lexus 3-row that's not a truck. I want that. And then they went over to the dealer and probably bought it. I'm sure you probably did actually buy, sell a few of them there. It's absolutely, I think, what happens a lot of times. Thank you all for the support there and the love. I appreciate it. And Fastline says, I'm currently watching this while playing Need for Speed. Nice. Fun multitasking there. And I'm curious what Need for Speed you're playing, because I haven't played them since I think Carbon was maybe the last one that I played. been a long time. I'd love to get back into them someday. I heard that they're not doing a new Need for Speed. Like that whole division of EA might have been shut down. I might be misinformed, but he says I'm playing Need for Speed Payback. Okay, I don't remember which one that was, but if that's the newest one, then that's awesome. I've been also, there was, I back in the day really liked Test Drive Unlimited, and there's like, I think a new one now, and I just, again, don't have time to play video games, unfortunately, much anymore, but that's one that sounds kind of cool, and I don't know if any of you have played that or if it's worth playing, but that'd be one I've been wanting to check out here someday. Let me see. Cam, thanks for stopping by. B. Mitchell is saying, sounds like you need to throw some wrenches at, yeah, same thing at the Cirrus. A friend of mine had a new 98 Stratus with the 2-liter i4 and 5-speed manual he ran for over 200,000 miles. That's impressive for one of those. I feel like not many crack 200,000. That's awesome. Raphael says, I try for middle of August every year. It's a 2.5-hour drive. Well, that's awesome. I respect your commitment to making that long of a drive for Kennywood. That's awesome. I hope you enjoy it. And yeah, Kennywood's great. And actually, I think just this past year, they said it got sold to the people that run Dollywood and stuff. So I don't know. I don't think there's any changes yet this year, but I'm curious how, if they change anything in the future for it. Michelle says, if you had the opportunity to turn around a car company, which would it be? My guess is Subaru, as you get the most worked up for them. Yeah, it would probably be Subaru. I feel like this comes up fairly often. Subaru is one of the top ones. Also, I think Honda, has a lot of low-hanging fruit of easy things that would really help, all-wheel drive Accord, hybrid HRV, hybrid ADX. There's a lot of those types of things that I think, doing more trims of the Passport. I complained about that, all the money they're leaving on the table by making Passport only, these rugged off-road kind of things for the most part, and not doing any of the lower trims. There's a lot of these things that are just like part shelf fixes that I think would be really easy. So, I think that would be it. I think another fun one, if I could, if I had carte blanche to like remake it however I wanted, I think Ford is another top one that has just so much history, and it's a brand that I clearly like. I obviously had, 4 Mustangs, and, just have, enjoyed a lot of their products. And I think they do some really solid stuff. But again, just them turning their back on regular cars and turning their back on the awesome hot hatches they were doing, and just yeah, there's just some things with Ford that I'd certainly tweak as well. There's so many companies though that I'd love to. I think Chrysler has a lot of potential. If you, tap into the nostalgia there, and you tap into a truly like world-class Cadillac competing product, I think Chrysler could be that if you gave them the funding. And they've claimed that, they do have a future plan and stuff's coming. I think next year is when they start their product blitz. But in the meantime, it's just like, why did it ever get to this point? Why did they ever let it die on the vine like this? Even Chrysler 300, so many missed opportunities there. Why did they not do a wide body version of that? Why did they not do a Hellcat version of that? Why, if they would have put everything into that they, put into the Charger, I think they could have absolutely, just been on fire with Chrysler. There's no reason why it had to, putter out like it has. So many other GM things I'd love to bring back. I think Saturn would be a great EV only brand. I think Pontiac could be a great Dodge competitor. All those types of things of resurrecting old brands. And yeah, there's a bunch. But Subaru, same deal of like so many low hanging fruit. Why do we not have a turbo motor in the Crosstrek? Why do we not have a Baja that competes with Maverick? Why do we not have a truck version of every single SUV they make? Make a truck version of the Crosstrek, make a truck version of the Outback, make a truck version of the Ascent. It's literally take a Sawzall and, do that as your rough draft, refine it, and then give you the production capacity. It just seems really strange. That they just the easy cash grabs, you would think. I'm sure again the product data tells them that there's some other thing that's missing as far as why they can't make those leaps. But I just feel like there's a lot, that there's a lot of potential that I think is being untapped with a variety of these brands. Let me see, where were we here? Danny says my parents are still having not taught me how to drive the Traverse. I'm not used to the size at all. The Cirrus has moss growing on it, and it's stuffed in the back corner of my grandfather's yard. Nothing a power washer can't fix, as long as it doesn't have like really bad mold or like, hantavirus, mice, infestations and stuff. And as long as it's just regular, grime and patina, I think there might be something to polish up there. I don't know. I mean, obviously, I'm sure someone's thought about it in your family before, but it'd be fun to see, an old car back on the road. And okay, Spaces, thanks for stopping by. Eric says, you mentioned the SS sedan before, such a fantastic automobile. I had a 17 6MT for 5 years. That's awesome. Sold it for the only logical successor, a 2022 CT5e Blackwing. Man, I am jealous. That's awesome. You have a Blackwing, and that is absolutely the only logical successor. You're absolutely right. Man, well, that's a very nice leap. You have good taste in cars. Sir. Yeah, I'm glad. Hopefully, yeah, I'm curious how your ownership experience was though with the SS. If it treated you well and if you enjoyed it. I mean, I'm glad you say it's fantastic. But yeah, it's a really underappreciated car, I think. And another example of Chevy. I know it sounds like the behind the scenes of that car was that they weren't wanting to sell a bunch of them. They just needed to like sell a certain amount, and it was just like to fill a need or something, and that's why they kind of phoned it in on the marketing. But I mean, that thing with cooler styling called Chevelle would have done gangbusters, and they could have again kept it going as a Charger competitor, and just like it was a better platform. It was definitely better than Charger, but they just didn't bother to do anything with it. It's just, yeah, real shame. And also a shame for Australia, because that's where that car came from. I think, Australia could have kept that manufacturing hub there, because that really, devastated that region with all those jobs lost and stuff. It was really crappy what ended up happening in Australia because of all that, fallout. Ford too, with the Falcon and everything. There's no reason. I mean, Ford could have brought that Falcon over here too. Same deal, shipped it over. I mean, even the Utes. I think, the Holden Utes, for anyone who's unaware, it's basically the Chevy SS, but they hacked the back end off and made a truck bed essentially. And Utes are very popular in Australia, or at least they were. I think that would have been a great like muscle Maverick competitor in a way. And I think that would have had a real success. So you call that the El Camino, you have the Chevelle, and they would have been off to the races. Put a little marketing behind it, make it look cool, make sure you execute it well, but like real easy phone-ins, in my opinion, that would have actually done really well. And also, again, maintained those relationships and those factories and those workers and all that. It's just, anyway, I remember when that was all unfolding, 5 or so years ago, and I was just like, man, this is such a bummer. Let me see. Darnell, thanks so much for the super chat. I really appreciate it. I appreciate the support there. If you have any questions, I'll also keep an eye out for those. We're doing a pretty good job here keeping up with all the questions, member and non-member. But if you have any other follow-up, I'd be happy to chat. But thanks so much for the super chat. Truck and Car Guy says, I'll be going Salt River tubing, a local thing here in Arizona, and going to dinner to celebrate my birthday. Well, happy early birthday. He says, be nice not having to work in triple digits for once. That's awesome. Well, hope you have a great birthday and a great little trip there. And that's awesome. And I hope it's not too hot there whenever that happens. Linda, thanks for stopping by. And Trunk Car Guy says, it's tomorrow. Oh, well, that's awesome. Yeah, happy early birthday here. And hope tomorrow's great for you. And the OKS Basis says, got to find time this week to replace the headlights in my Bolt. I hate that modern vehicles require you to pull the whole front end just to change a bulb. That's crazy on the Bolt. Yeah, I mean, some cars are better than others, but yeah, it's been a while since I've changed a headlight bulb because I never keep anything long enough anymore. But yeah, I feel like I don't even remember Mustangs, how you access it in those, because I never had to bother with even changing those. But that's unfortunate. You take the whole front end off. You would think, like, yeah, hopefully they make it easy for you to do so. It's not like you got to go to the dealer to change a light bulb. That's crazy. That's one of those things where, like, the right to repair laws, I hope, there's some of those things where they engineer it in, so it should be easier than that. That seems kind of crazy. And Theodore says, my wife says, when you are when are you going to do another acceleration video like the Z06? That was just the best. Yeah, I'm hoping to get some other wild cars. I actually asked my Chevy rep recently if a Z01 is going to come into the fleet, and he just laughed and was like, I doubt it. So I guess Z01 is kind of on another level than Z06. So maybe I won't ever review a Z01, or at least not for a while. We'll see. But yeah, I'm hoping to do some more fast stuff in the future. I mean, I know there's a few other Aston Martins running around, as far as press vehicles. I don't know if they're in my specific fleet yet or not, but I'm hoping to maybe get some more of those. Those should be some good reactions because the Vantage was pretty good back in the spring, I think. And as far as compilations, I know those have been popular in the past. I typically do them every 100,000 subscribers, but with how slow the subscribers have been in the past, 5 or so years, it's gonna be a long time before I hit 500,000 subscribers, barring any, unforeseen success out of nowhere. But so yeah, I should probably do another compilation. It's just at this point, it's been so long, that'd be a lot of work to kind of yeah, because I have to go back several years. Because the last one's probably, I don't know, been 2018 or something like that. I don't know, but be fun to do another one soon. And let's see, COVID-19 vaccine salesperson says, hi, Matt. For my next car, I'm planning on a 2025 or newer Mazda 3 front-wheel drive auto 2.5-liter non-turbo. I like the value proposition it offers. Do you think this is a good idea, or would a Corolla or Civic be better? I mean, it comes down to, I think, primarily how much back seat space do you need? If you don't frequently put people back there, then I agree with you. Mazda would be my pick. I like it better than Civic and Corolla. I think it has, more luxury. It has more power. It has more comfort. It looks better, in my opinion. It has a better stereo if you go for one of the higher trims there. It gets the Bose stereo. Those are. It is still my favorite compact. But with like my own realities of like if I'm driving around my daughter and I got to put a big car seat in the back, things like that. Where I think Civic, especially Civic, Corolla is fine, but it's not best in segment really in any way, unless you just want something that'll run forever. But even still, I'd just say get a Civic, because Civic is just a lot nicer, and also I'd say equally as reliable as Corolla. So if backseat is important to you, or for example, if you're going for the hatch, or if you just want, the most practicality, I mean, Civic hatch, it doesn't get any better than that. Big backseat, best hatch in the segment, just really well executed from a packaging standpoint. So, there's those other considerations to keep in mind there. But otherwise, yeah, I love the Mazda 3. I did a review, I think that was early this year, on a Mazda 3 front-wheel drive. I think actually the one I did was like a premium trim. It was like a lower trim of the Mazda 3, and I'm really happy they sent it, because it's even the non-turbo ones, they're really great cars. So I definitely very much like them. So I think you're on the right path there, but again, comes down to how it fits you. Definitely sit in one if you haven't already, because it is a little tighter inside, even up front. So make sure it's a good fit for you. But as long as it is, I'd say that's the one I'd go with as well. Again, not without knowing any of the other, context. If you have any other unique needs, feel free to let me know. I'd be more than happy to, drill down a little bit more. But yeah, I like the Mazda 3 a lot. Eric, thank you so much for a super chat as well. A very generous super chat. I really appreciate it. He says, thank you, sir. And likewise, on your taste in cars. The ownership experience was fantastic, just regular oil changes, and put 60,000 miles on it. That's awesome. LS3 was bulletproof, was so underappreciated. Now, do I sell Blackwing for a Z06? Yeah, only you can answer that question. I mean, I'm assuming you're not using the back seat if you're fine giving it up for, a Z06. I guess it comes down, I don't know if you have a manual or an automatic. Blackwing, obviously, if it's manual, you clearly lose out on that. If you're not, if you have an automatic Blackwing, then the dual clutch, I'd say, in the Z06 is better. It's quicker. It's a really well done dual clutch, and Z06 is very special in a different way. Blackwing is more like peak, traditional, not muscle car, because that's in it, that is wrong to say of the Blackwing. It's so much more than that. But it's more of a traditional epicness in a way, versus Z06 is like, bargain supercar and a bargain like fantastic supercar. Like I'd rather have Z06 than like any McLaren right now, because it sounds better. It's just such an incredibly dynamic vehicle. So that's tough. If you don't care about any of the other stuff the Cadillac has that the Z06 doesn't, the only thing I will say, I don't know. I haven't seen what the highest mileage Z06 has gotten up to, but I would say I'd have more confidence in a Blackwing going 200,000 miles than I would a Z06. Again, I don't know how much you plan on driving it for. I just would be a little nervous about the Z06 motor for high mileage applications. Now, if this is just a weekend car and, you'll never see more than 50,000 miles on it or something, then, I'd probably say you're fine on the Z06. I don't know. Z06 might be indestructible with the motor. I thought I heard some early stuff, especially in the development days where they're kind of struggling with it a little bit. But I haven't heard of any failures or anything, but it's just a motor that makes me a little nervous, just on its premise. But I really should actually look in and peek in on some of the Z06 forums and see if anyone's complaining or if they are solid motors. And maybe you have a better handle on that than I do. Okay, so he says, yeah, manual, save the manual. So that's the big question is, do you give up the manual? Yeah, I don't know. So as someone who has given up the manual, speaking from experience, obviously, selling the Bullet last year and now having the 2 EVs, obviously no manual, like having the Miata here in the past week, having a manual, maybe you're a more patient person than I am, but most automatics still really bother me with their response times, especially now being spoiled with the EVs and the instant response. But I really like the control of a manual. And I don't think I even fully appreciated just how much that's important to me until I lost it in the Bullet. And I now don't have the opportunity to drive a manual whenever I feel like it. I really do miss the manual a lot, like a lot. And it's a huge treat for me every time I get a press car with a manual, any manual. I'm just like, yes, I finally have all the control and all the response that I want. Now there's also obviously, some great automatics, and like the dual clutch in the Z06 is actually a very good dual clutch. It didn't piss me off like I get pissed off in the Volkswagen dual clutches or anything. Like it's very well done. I mean, it's a little rough at times. Like you can feel the clutch engaging whenever you're slowly accelerating, like up a hill or something. So, but if you're used to a manual, you're used to that roughness. So it's not, it can be the end of the world, but not the best. But from a sporty standpoint, it's a very good dual clutch. So, and it is one of the dual clutches where it's good enough that you can just manually paddle shift around everywhere. So you get that manual control. And honestly, I think that's the best way to drive Z06. I think if you leave it in automatic or even the sportier modes, it just doesn't take advantage of that high red line. You gotta be in that manual mode to really enjoy that engine to the fullest. But just the visceral experience of moving an actual shifter, using the clutch. Yeah, I don't know. It's tough. If you're not feeling a huge pull to Z06, I'd just leave it. If you do have an intense desire to have one, it might be hard. Maybe try and either rent one for a day if you live in a place that has, exotic rentals, or, see if you can find a used one and maybe test drive, something like that. If you show up in a Blackwing, they'll know you have money and it's not like you're just some joyrider. But new, it might be kind of hard to test drive. But if you can find a used Z06, try it out. If it's something you can't live without, go for it. But just be aware that you may miss the manual if you love it as much as I do. So yeah, I would say, maybe if there's a way you can get like a cheap manual just to keep that in your life or something. I don't know where you live, but if you live in a place where, for example, you benefit from having a winter beater or something, maybe get a manual on that, so you still kind of scratch that itch, and then have the Z06, for the nicer times or something. I don't know. But yeah, he also says, fair point on the longevity. The Blackwing is not an everyday car. I have 20,000 miles in 3 years. Okay, well then, yeah, in that case, I'm sure you'd be fine in the Z06. He says, giving up manual would be so difficult. I've had a manual since my first car, and I'm 50 now. Yeah, so if you're happy with Blackwing, especially because Blackwing is so special, if you were in something else that was like, I'd say maybe it's a little bit easier to live without it. But Blackwing is so magical, and I mean, I don't know if you're paying cash or not, but like, interest rates still aren't fantastic. Car prices are so inflated. You probably got some nice equity in the Blackwing and stuff. I honestly, I'd probably just stick with the Blackwing if I were you. As amazing as Z06 is, it's not like you're in any kind of penalty box. You got a really special car, and yeah, if you have a bond with that car and you enjoy it and you enjoy the manual, I'd probably, yeah. He says it's epic. So yeah, I'd stick with Blackwing. Yeah, test drive a Z06 at your own risk, because you don't want to get hooked and then and then be thinking about it night and day. But I think you're good with a Blackwing there. Yeah, that's awesome. You have one. Thanks for buying one too. I think the Blackwing is still a little bit underappreciated. I know there's a lot of people that are excited about them, but it just, so many people just go for the regular M5s. I see so many more M5s. I never see Blackwings around, but I see, M5s are a dime a dozen. I see all kinds of stuff like that all the time, M3s. And it's like, man, M3 money, even you could have a Blackwing, and it's like no comparison in my opinion. Let me see here. Where are we? And also thank you again for the super chat there, Eric. And let me see. So Truck and Car Guy says, to clarify, tubing is where you sit in a large tire inner tube and float down the river, kind of relaxing. Yeah, I've done tubing before. It's very, very nice. It's been a long time, but yeah, it should be a very nice way to spend your birthday. So that's awesome. Raphael says, for the 300, why didn't they just update it? They didn't need to do anything crazy. It was a good car. Yeah, it's a good question. I don't know. I mean, I think on the inside, for example, though, like it had the same screen as the Charger. So I think that was fine. I think, yeah, if they would have just done a little bit more of a significant refresh like we got with Charger to keep it kind of fresh, when was that, like 2017 or so, I think that would have kind of helped a little bit. Instead, it just kind of, I mean, it got its own little refresh, but just not to the extent, to keep it a little fresher feeling. But I think it was just lack of powertrains, it just, the V8 was very limited there. And it was a short-lived thing, and then it was just V6, and it's like you're not going to get any enthusiasts selling only V6 300s. And I think, yeah, it's just that they didn't have the swagger that they had with the first generation. The first generation, it looked so high-end for the time period, and just again had that V8. I think through the whole model years of production for the first generation there. And then they just kind of, again, went a little soft after the first few years on the second gen. I think they just needed to keep that edge. I think they maybe try to go a little too fancy with it or something, as far as like trying to market it to people that weren't enthusiasts. But I think there are a lot of enthusiasts that want luxurious muscle, like Blackwing, and I think people who don't need all the sophistication of Blackwing would have been completely fine in a 300 with a bunch of power. And again, it's right there on the parts shelf. That's the thing that I think really drives me crazy. Expecting Honda to make a new S2000 out of thin air, like stuff like that, it's unrealistic to expect that or even hope for that. But, when you have stuff right there, like it's literally built in the same factory. Like they could have had an accidental, motor just drop in from a Charger on the same line, pop into a 300, and like, oh, hey, look, like, I know there's a little bit more to it than that, but like whenever you have all the pieces there, like, why not? It just seemed, I know you got to certify the motor and that's a few $1,000,000 or whatever, but like, I feel like they would have made that back pretty easily. So I don't know. It's kind of crazy to me. It's a shame the way it went with 300. Maybe it'll return, but I think if it returns, it's going to be some kind of crazy expensive electric thing or something. And it's like, I mean, maybe now with kind of Dodge regressing and going back to their, roots of the past 10 years, maybe we'll see 300 come back, edgier, but still, kind of a similar kind of thing. Maybe we'll see it as just a nicer version of the Charger. That's entirely possible. We'll see. But thanks for stopping by. Thank you so much for the super chat as well. He says, hey guys, trying to break in my new taco. The interior is so unique. Oh, I'm glad you got it. That's awesome too. Congrats on the new truck. So yeah, sent me a listing here this past week of a Tacoma that's in I think the color is the bronze age color or something. it's that like slightly like lighter brown for the Tacoma. Great color. Not the mud bath, but another color there that he got, and he has the red interior, which I think is a cool combo. I'm glad you went for it. Hope it treats you well. I got a 4Runner here this week, and same kind of platform and everything. It's so great. Yeah, well, I hope you have a great time driving it around and enjoying it. Always that new car smell is so fun. So glad you're enjoying it, and wish you many happy miles in it. But yeah, this 4Runner I have a limited 4Runner this week for the press car, and I was really impressed with it on the first drive, which happened, I think at this point, back in January. It's been a long time since, usually there's not that big of a gap between when I drive it on the media drive and when it shows up in my driveway. But I love 4Runner. Like if I needed something, if I lived in a place that got really intense winters, or if I lived, in a place where I was, I had to have decent off-road capability, it'd either be Defender or 4Runner as far as my personal favorite 4x4 SUV. But 4Runner, man, I love this new 4Runner. The motor is so punchy. And after just being in the Honda Passport, and that 10-speed that refuses to downshift for 3 seconds every time I put my foot down, the Tacoma or the 4Runner is just like a night and day difference. Where like instant downshift, the second I lean into the gas, boom, it's right there. And I mean, like even on the highway, I was just like slowly ramping up the gas to do a pass around a strangely driving Tesla, and like it immediately dropped like 3 gears, like it's instant. It's so good, that new 4Runner. And I mean, this limited too is so nice with the adaptive suspension and everything. It's just, they did such a good job on these new 4Runners. I know people are mad it's not the V6 and it's not old as dirt anymore, but like it's light years better. Like and I mean, even I was telling my family this tonight, my sister and brother-in-law. I was like, I love the 4Runner, and my sister's like, I never thought I'd ever hear you say those words. And it's like, it's kind of crazy, but I really love the 4Runner, and it's the first trucky thing like that I've really kind of found myself infatuated with. And this one's also the heritage blue color, which is such a good color too. And has the brown interior, brown leather. I mean, it's almost 60 grand, which is a lot for a 4Runner, but highly recommend. Love the new 4Runner. Stay tuned for my other thoughts in my week with video here coming up soon. And 2 also says custom interior. It's not Toyota OEM. It's the Catskin branded. Yeah, and they seem to make great leather covers. I'm curious how you like the quality and all that. But it's awesome that, it's a custom job there. Thanks so much again for the super chat there. Enjoy that Tacoma. Let me see here. Danny says the Cirrus is at my grandfather's house. Yes, my uncle lives with my grandfather. Maybe I can try to get that thing up and running after sitting since 2005 or 2006. Would definitely be a long-term thing. Yeah, I think it could be cool though. I mean, you'd be surprised. A lot of cars that have been sitting, I've seen so many of these. I follow a few guys on Instagram who, find these barn finds. They just find like stuff that's been sitting in a yard. Even stuff from like 50s and 60s, some of these things, like even 70s, that just been sitting. And as long as they ran whenever you parked them, you change the plugs. I mean, I know B. Mitchell could probably tell you all about this better than I can, but you change the plugs typically, you flush everything, you put fresh stuff in there, and a lot of times they fire right up, and it's, it oftentimes doesn't take a whole lot to revive a car like that, unless, again, if it's really far gone and it's got body rot all through it and stuff, then obviously it's beyond saving. But if it's in decent shape and just needs a little bit of TLC, you might have a nice little free basic car on your hands. Could be kind of cool. Let me see here. TFI, thanks so much for being a member for 11 months now. I really appreciate it. He says, what's the best key fob design to fit in the old prison purse? I mean, I really love Honda's key. It's really small. I mean, it's like, maybe that tall, really thin, really nice small key. And there's I'd say just because I love small keys as well, like it's just really nice to not have a big bulky thing in your pocket. So that's one of my favorites. Trying trying to think of other keys. I always loved Mazda's old key. They went to a bigger key that's like double the size for no reason, and their new Mazdas, which is kind of a shame because I loved Mazda. Had a nice little skinny one for a long time as well. But otherwise, what's the other one that was pretty nice recently? There's one that's like really high quality with like metal and I really like Kia's new key. They've always, ever since the Stinger, they have a key where it has like a trigger switch on the top of it for locking, and it's like a nice like satin finish to it, and it's really nice. So that's another one of the ones I really like. But that's a little bit on the big side though. So I'd say Honda's probably my favorite just from a size standpoint there. And Andrew the Sith Striker, thank you so much for the super chat. He says, what percentage would you guess that we get a Hemi in the new Charger body next year at this time? Well, Mopar Insiders claims that like by the end of 2026 is when we will get a V8 Charger. They're not 100% accurate, but they are pretty accurate. Like it's legit reporting. It's not the BS you see on Instagram and these AI stupid YouTube videos and stuff. It's like real reporting with real legit sources and contacts within, Stellantis. And so they claim end of next year. I would be inclined to agree with them and bet on that. It might even be sooner though, because they're already ramping up production. We see, the new V8s roaring back here in the Ram, and if it's there, I don't know what they're doing as far as how they're going to make it fit. Because again, I keep hearing conflicting things. I kind of mentioned this in the Charger video. If you watched that here on Friday, I was on the phone call. They told us about that a few days before the reveal on Friday. I was on the phone call, and one of the journalists asked, how does the Hellcat motor fit or something? And obviously they're like, but he said, don't be surprised if it does fit. Which I hadn't expected him to even say anything, honestly. And then to say that was a big curveball for me, because I swear to you, like I was sitting at lunch on the Charger EV drive back, in December, and me and a few other journalists are sitting there eating our lunch, and one of the Dodge engineers, who literally has engineered this Charger, comes over to us. How do you like the car? Blah, blah, blah. And, we get to talking, and we're like, so what about the V8? Does it fit? He's like, it doesn't fit. Like, but he also was like, yeah, no, like we don't need to worry about that. We got the 6-cylinder coming. The 6-cylinder is better in every way. The same thing they've told us about Ram for all these years, the Ram is better with this 6-cylinder, and I agree with them. It is better in every single way that matters to truck buyers, aside from the sound. It's just, again, people are still just, the sound is, even if they're going way slower, that's all they care about. And I mean, I can understand that, even if it, doesn't make entire sense if you're going for a fast car. But regardless, the engineer told us, like, it doesn't fit. And I think, since then, people who have done a little more poking around in the Charger engine bay, have said it seems like I think the shock towers are the problem, because the V doesn't clear them. So they either found a creative way to relocate the shock towers, find some way to jack the engine up. I mean, they might have some kind of Frankenstein kind of thing where they really got the engine mounted high and it's going to handle like garbage, but they say, well, here's the V8. But if they raise that center of gravity, and maybe they can, again, get that V high enough that you can then clear the shock towers and then put a blower kind of hood on it or something. I have no clue. But a lot of people, this is why the speculation early on here in the past year or so was that a V8 could be a new V8, that they're actually, engineering something new that's maybe more tighter with the V arrangement, maybe not, just a tighter degree or a tighter angle for the Vs to maybe clear it that way. I don't know. I don't know how they're going to pull it off, but it sounds like, I thought I heard that someone had spied a Charger that sounded like it had real V8 sounds running around in Mexico. I don't know, again, how legit that is, but they may have found a way. I just don't know how they've managed to do it, because, again, if they say it told me it doesn't fit, I mean, maybe they're just straight up lying. I don't know. I guess that's possible, but the guy seemed nice and like he wouldn't just be, saying stuff that was blatantly false. But So I don't know, but it sounds like it's not going to be a new V8 because, it sounds like they're just, again, even the V8 and the Ram is just the old one because they said they didn't have to recertify it because it was already certified. They just pop it in. That's why it has the e-torque, because that was the way it went out with e-torque. And so they're just, popping it back in, no certification needed. And, so I'm assuming that they're going to try to do the same thing where they just do the same old motors. Those are the ones that are being reproduced here, it seems, is those old motors. So I'm guessing they found a way to fit the old motor in. Again, which one it is, I don't know. But, if they've found a way to fit any V8, then obviously that means Hellcat's coming. And Dodge has said there's more to come with Charger. They've said, look back at where Challenger began in 2009. And, you had this still fairly weak V8, and it wasn't super impressive. And then, you didn't even have Hellcat until like 6 years later in 2015. It took time to bring all this stuff out. And so they're like, we're just getting started. This is the literally first year of this new Charger. Give us time to make the cool ones. Like, obviously they're already fast. They're already impressive out of the box, but like, there's a lot more to the story. Now we also know, the Banshee was what they had originally planned to be the new Hellcat replacement of this, 800 plus horsepower electric, Charger, and that was going to be the top dog. Now, whether they've had a change of heart, with the new administration and everything, and if they just want to do V8s for the next few years, maybe they'll do that and put the Banshee on the back burner until they have to actually abide by some kind of fuel economy standards again in the 2030s. I don't know. But, that was the next logical step, and that could still be what they're referring to when they say we still have more coming. It might be some 800 plus horsepower electric thing, which would be crazy, but as has been shown, that might be an uphill battle to say the least. So maybe that's something that'll come in the 2030s instead. In the meantime, they just stuff a Hellcat in there, and who cares if it handles like crap, just put it up as high as you need to clear the shock towers and ship it off. So I don't know, but I think we'll see it because they, have shown obviously they're willing to go back like they did with Ram. So I would say with 99% certainty, that it's going to come back. Because they've really just basically said everything but that. They've really danced around it, and I think it's just very likely that does end up happening. But yeah, next year at this time might be a little early, but it might not. I don't know. I think there's a decent chance we could see something around this time next year. And Confirmation, thank you so much for a super chat as well. 2 super chats. I really appreciate it. He says, people who list SMG and DCT equipped BMWs as manual on classifieds will not see heaven. I like that. There's so many things where they're mislisted. I ran across this week, actually doing some research for the one client I was doing the car consulting for. And the stuff I was looking up for him, there's so many things where they say, oh, it's a manual, and then I look on Auto Trader and I'm looking through the pictures, I'm like, nope, that's an automatic. And it's, I don't know why, if it does not have a clutch pedal, it's not a manual. I don't know why some people think that's good to do. If they do it deliberately, then you're clearly not going to get the person who is looking for a manual. So you're wasting their time because they're not going to buy it. So it's not good from a marketing standpoint. And then also people who specifically are only wanting an automatic version of those vehicles, they're not going to see your listing. So if it's a mistake, it's a bad mistake to make it. If it's a deliver thing, it's also stupid to do it that way. So like, it's a lose-lose no matter how you look at it. If you think about it for more than 2 seconds, there should never be a reason to list it like that. I totally agree. He also says, do you think a Hemi V8 equipped new Charger prototype exists in the Skunk Works of Stellantis? If so, do you think it's a Hellcat prototype? So like I said, I think there might be that thing in Mexico I heard about. I don't know. Again, just stuff I heard, was spied or whatever. Again, nothing official or anything, but so I think it's possible. I mean, I know they have to be working on it. It's even if they don't have something already ready to go, you can guarantee there's a Charger somewhere in Stellantis with a giant shoehorn trying to shove a V8 in and putting as much petroleum jelly around it as you can to try and squeeze it in there. So I don't know, if it's how far along it is, if it is even happening. But yeah, I think the message here, at least from Ram, has been pretty clear. They have no interest in forward progress really in the next few years. It's, hey, let's cash in on the gas guzzlers. Let's appeal to the V8 lovers and, do one last hurrah and, squeeze all the money they can out of that, make everyone happy that they can, try and get a little bit of redemption from the people that are royally pissed off at them from the past couple of years here, and hope they can get some goodwill back as a result of their, pivot. But like I've said in the past, it's short-sighted. It's only going to last for a few years. I don't think we're going to have a free-for-all of emissions standards for the rest of time, and they're going to have to face the music sooner or later. And when they do, everyone that's still been working on EVs will have top-notch products, and everyone who's phoned it in or put it on the back burner or delayed it, they're going to be behind. They're going to have just not as much experience, not as much expertise. And, this is what Rivian's been warning about. Rivian said the same thing. Like, okay, I see Ford's delaying all their, next generation electric trucks and all this. He's like, that's great for us because we're going to have top-notch products. And then whenever Ford decides to get with the times and do all these things they've delayed, once they finally get around to an electric Bronco in the 2030s, once they finally get around to an electric this, that, and the other, Rivian's going to already have all their top-notch products that have been around for a decade that are, fantastic and perfected. And Ford's going to be figuring out like it's their, freshman year. And, they have great stuff with the Lightning and stuff. They make good EVs. Obviously, we had our Mach-E for 3 years. We're very happy with it. But, things advance quickly in the EV world. And, it's very easy to fall behind. Maybe Ford's just gambling that we're all just going to end up driving Chinese EVs in the next few years because everyone will just give up on trying to compete with what is clearly a far superior product as far as, they're already living in the 2030s in China from a car standpoint. Other stuff, definitely debatable, but, their cars are just, the EVs are so wildly ahead of everything we have here. So, maybe everyone's just assuming, oh, we'll just rebadge Chinese EVs in the 2030s and make up for it that way. I don't know. But anyway, yeah. Not for that tangent, but absolutely, I think it's probably going to come sooner or later. And thank you again so much for the super chats, their confirmation. Let me see here. Where were we? So, COVID salesperson says Pontiac would be so fun nowadays. I agree. And Helio says, any issues I need to look for in a 10-plus-year-old IS350? Any tunes worth doing while still remaining daily drivability? Cheers. I don't know enough about those, so I really don't know. Maybe someone else here will be a better wealth of information for you. But from everything I know about IS350s, they're really solid, so I wouldn't worry about any major things. Maybe there's some minor things that some people can enlighten you on. The best place to look for that kind of stuff is going to be, Facebook groups for the IS, subreddits for the IS, forums. Those are the best places to get that kind of info. I wish I was that knowledgeable about every single car out there, but I don't know all the individual ins and outs and pitfalls of every single vehicle and every generation and stuff. It's just far too much info to keep up on. So those can be your best places, talking to real owners of those vehicles, what has broken for them. But I haven't checked that recently, unfortunately. And Truck and Car Guy says, I may be biased, but I would like to see Dodge make a kit that makes a newer motor compatible with an older Mopar chassis. That'd be fun, yeah, to see some type of hodgepodge. I think, I don't know. There's definitely some, what do they call those? What's the thing when you soup up and the resto mods? That's it. There's a lot of resto mods where, you can make, they drop Hellcat motors and old stuff all the time. It's just the ECU and stuff can be a little tricky, but I think they sell like standalone ECUs and stuff. So you can put, whatever you want in these things and make it run. SEMA, that's all they do is, put these modern motors in and all these things. You see thousands of them across that show floor. So there's definitely got to be a way to do it. Let me see, ICB Mitchell's talking about the Sirius there. If it ain't a timing belt, that's the only thing you got to worry about there. Interesting. And also, B. Mitchell says Lutz was fighting the bean counters at GM to make the Holden Ute Northern American Chevy or even a Pontiac El Camino, but the bean counters won. Interesting. Yeah, I need to read that book that he did about car guys versus the bean counters, because that'd be interesting to hear the story of how that all played out. You would think, I don't know how bean counters would be against that though. Like, surely, I mean, I know this was again probably 10, 15 years ago now, but you would think like trucks have always been like such hot sellers here. Why do they not think that was going to be popular? Like, I think that definitely would have been. I mean, now certainly they're probably kicking themselves and they see Maverick going crazy. I know it's a different type of thing, but clearly, that's another one. Speaking of car companies that love to, do new products with, Chevy. Like, why do we not have a Maverick competitor? It's just so easy. And they just haven't done. I mean, think about a Trax. Take a Chevy Trax, again, hack the back end off it. Repeat after me. Hack the back end off, put a truck bed on it, slap it on the back, and call it a day. Literally, I mean, it doesn't have to be complicated, but that's they just can't seem to get out of their own way there with some of that stuff. But let me see. Two, thanks so much for a very generous super chat. He says, so fun conversation with the sales manager at the dealership. Turns out he's a distant relative. That's funny. The pre-runner is the rarest Tacoma trim on the West Coast. Oh, yeah. I mean, I'm fully convinced that pre-runner is going to be the rarest one of them all. I think there's a real fun component to it that has appeal, but I think it's just a combination of awareness. A lot of people don't know that those kinds of combos exist. Everyone expects the TRDs. Everyone expects all the trims that are already out there, but the pre-runner is such a, just different kind of thing. And also, it is a hard sell to do a rear-wheel drive only truck. And that's what, pre-runner, I don't think offers the 4-wheel drive. So like TRD stuff, but only rear-wheel drive, can be a little bit of a, hang up maybe for some people, but I think it's a really cool combo. I think it'd be a ton of fun. I haven't driven one, but, I think the pre-runner, when I heard about that version, I was like, oh, that's really cool. Toyota does these fun things like that every once in a while. And he also says the X-Runner was supposed to be the two-door performance version, but because the V6 is having issues, they didn't want to put it in a Taco because this is the reliable of the two trucks. It'd be cool to see. I mean, I thought the V6 issues have been ironed out since then, because it was just, I thought, production line stuff where they had some debris on the line, and that made for a bad batch of engines. I haven't heard of other issues. Maybe you know more about that than I do. But I think that would be awesome to have an X-Runner with Tundra motor and a Tacoma. I just didn't think it would fit, but if it fits, absolutely, that would be awesome. That'd be really, really cool. And thank you again for the super chat there too. And let me see. See more discussion about the Cirrus there. And let me see. He says Danny saying his grandfather could teach him how to drive stick shift. That'd be fun. Nicholas says, hi, Matt and gang. Just got back from a drive and saw a modified Evo 10. I was flooring it up a hill and heard these really loud turbo bushes right behind me. Really cool. That's awesome. I'm happy to see some Evo 10s floating around out there. I hardly ever see Evos anymore, unfortunately. I don't know why, but I mean, I see STIs all the time, but I just never see Evos anymore. That's awesome. And Big Metro says, I've got to admit that Aston Martin has been pretty easy for media access to their cars. From 2012 to 2018, I was a regular at their compound at Monterey Carmel during Car Week. That's awesome. That's cool. You got to drive some of those. That's some great stuff during that time period. And I hope that Aston keeps sending me stuff. That would be awesome, because I absolutely love that brand. Let me see. Vishal says also Charger 6-pack pricing isn't as bad as I thought it would be. I was expecting it to be 60 grand or more to start. Yeah, it's not bad. I know a lot of people still are just, wanting cheaper versions. I think the thing that people don't, this is also partially Dodge's fault with the 6-packs, is that, the RT, it still is a performance one. You look at like Challenger, RT was still the V8. It was still a performance version. It wasn't the fastest, obviously. It was only 375 horsepower, but it was a step up from the base one. So if RT is the lowest that they've put out so far, logic would dictate there is still going to be something lower at some point. Now, whether they have any intention of doing that, I don't know. But you would think for mass appeal, you got to have something that isn't an RT and do something, lower trimmed. So, especially, Pentastar V6 is still clearly in production and a whole bunch of stuff. I don't see any reason why Pentastar V6, maybe again, the V thing is a problem. But I feel like that might fit. And hopefully it's a little smaller than the Hemi V8. I don't know. But if they can find a way to put the Pentastar in, then you get a real nice cheap motor. Because the thing with even the standard output in the RT is that it's a twin turbo. Two high quality turbos. These turbos are running Inconel 100. I think it's like, space age, crazy durable stuff in these turbos, which that motor, and also some people in the video were coming in the comments were kind of coming to the defense of that vehicle because that thing was getting so much crap in the comments. People are saying that simple, like basic tunes, like 600 horsepower out of that high output motor, which already does 550, at the crank. But I guess they're talking, in the Rams and stuff, people are getting 600 horsepower already. That motor is going to be a drag racing champ. There's already the crate motor versions that are 1,000 horsepower. That could be the 2JZ of the 2020s, if people actually give it a chance, because it seems like it's really intensely built. You can go read the press release for this Charger 6-pack. I didn't even bother including it in the video because I figured it was just like way too nerdy. But they listed in the press release all the crazy reinforcements this motor has to it. It sounds like it's a really stout motor, and they really bent over backwards to like make this thing bulletproof. It sounds like. Maybe I'm wrong, but like the amount of, at least the way the marketing people put, they put a ton of very intense heavy duty stuff into this motor, forged this and that and everything. It's like, it should be really solid. And so, I think, but with these twin turbos, they're expensive. And so even on the cheap RT version, you can only go so cheap, with having two turbos, having an intercooler, all the extra plumbing and piping, which is also why it's heavier. Which was another strange thing. People complaining about Charger weight. Like every Charger's been heavy. Like they're all bloated. That's always been the downfall. Everyone, the first thing you complain about in Charger and Challenger is their big boats. So why anyone expected or cared that these ones are a couple 100 pounds heavier with, again, all that extra crap of twin turbos and everything goes along with them to support them, and all-wheel drive is standard? Of course. I thought it'd be more heavy than what it is, and it's still way lighter than the AV version. That was another strange thing. Like, oh, now Mopar fans care about curb weight all of a sudden? That's new. But yeah, so I think, but you can only go so cheap with a twin turbo setup. It's just an expensive thing by nature. So I think that hopefully they can ditch the turbos, throw the slow V6 in there, and for everyone who just wants the cool look and wants that low price tag, hopefully they can do that to kind of democratize, the Charger a little bit more, especially the 4-door ones, so we'll see. I think there's still, again, lots more to that story as far as what's to come in the future, hopefully. Let me see, where are we here? So, I see more discussion here about the stuff with Danny and the Cirrus and all that. And I see Danny also says, B. Mitchell says to Danny about you should have a Corvair because having one will make you into a mechanic if you want to be one or not, in a good way. And those would be good to learn and stick on. Yeah, Corvair would be great if you have that in your family, Danny. That could be a really fun car to get used to driving, and just, classics are so fun to try out. And Nicholas says, Matt, I love the Miata video. Worth noting that Mazda Finance seems to offer crazy APR incentives for it. It was 0.09% when I was cross-shopping the Miata last year. Interesting. That's crazy. I hadn't seen that on Miata. That's good to know and good info for anyone else who's considering it. I wasn't aware of that. Otherwise, I would have mentioned it in the video probably. Interesting. They don't really do too many finance deals I've seen on Mazdas around here. They do some decent incentives, though. If you want a cheap Mazda right now, get one of the plug-in hybrid CX-70s or CX-90s. because it is eligible for the tax credit until the end of September with the plug-in hybrid versions, there's people leasing those things for like $300 a month for that very, very nice big SUV. Absolute steal. So, I mean, yeah, that's a real solid deal if you're looking for anything in that segment right now. Absolutely. Like, don't walk, run to your Mazda dealer and get a plug-in hybrid. Lease one of those things, dirt cheap, and it's such a nice vehicle for the money. But Raphael says, I didn't get my first automatic till my early 40s. Now 2 in a row, and I really miss manuals. Yeah, that's absolutely something that I think, really grows on you. It's just, I think it really is the control, at least for me. It's like having that direct control of what gear I'm in, having the car do exactly what I want it to do pretty much is just very nice, and something that's getting harder and harder again with these days of computerized transmissions that are always trying to figure out, oh, should we hypermile? Should we give you a bunch of downshifts? And this thinking period is just not fast enough in these automatics many times. Danny says, my grandfather would probably not let me touch the Corvair. Yeah, that's funny. And I'd love to see a picture, the Cirrus there. If you want to send it over in the future, Danny, we could feature it as a member car of the week or honorary member, I guess, since you still haven't gotten any luck with the member gifting here in the past. But yeah, that's awesome. And let me see here. So Danny also says he saw a 64 Corvair 95 Greenbrier, aka the Corvair van. Yeah, it's awesome they did the Corvair vans. That was another thing ahead of the time. GM just didn't get the love it deserved. He said, I was shocked to see one. That's awesome. B. Mitchell says, the Chrysler 300 talk reminds me of my financial advisor, whose dad was a VP at Chrysler in the 60s. That's awesome. Dad would come home with things like an Imperial with a 426 Hemi, and he kept it all, and he kept all the build sheets. Wow, that's crazy. Man, that sounds, man, like that could be some fun stories. That person should write a book. That'd be incredible to hear all those kinds of things that he probably got to experience. B. Mitchell says, yeah, bean counters would have us all driving silver Equinoxes and Silverados. Pretty much, yeah. And the TFI says the Chevy Montana sold in Mexico is pretty much a Trax pickup. Interesting. Okay, see, I didn't even know about that. So that deep breathing here. If it's already made, I mean, I know, Mexico has lower crash test, standards and stuff, but if it's essentially a Trax underneath, especially if it's the new gen Trax, then it should pass crash testing just fine. Montana, if that's, I'm going to have to look this up after we're done on the stream here, because I'm going to be raging in my little office here. If they already have basically built it and then they don't send it to the States, I don't understand. I mean, this is why I don't know what they're waiting for with this Rampage that is also in South America. Like, they have this Maverick competitor. It's right there. It literally has American flags and the taillights built in. If you look at the taillights on the thing, they're American. I'm like, why is this not being sold here? Like, what is going on here? Like, what's the holdup? Like, what wheel needs greased to get this thing happening? It's just bizarre. I mean, so many of these things. I mean, WRX wagon, they have the Lavorg in Mexico. They sell the WRX wagon in Mexico. The bean counters somehow decided this makes sense to sell this in Mexico, but not in America or not in Canada. I think you can't get it in Canada. You think Canada especially would appreciate the extra practicality there, where they sell tons of all-wheel drive stuff up there, but yet Mexico is the North American market that gets the wagon WRX. Like, what are they smoking at Subaru? Like, how does that remotely make sense to anybody at all? I mean, unless there is a diehard gigantic group of people buying every WRX under the sun in Mexico, I just don't see how an all-wheel drive wagon makes more sense to sell in a beautiful sunny place that's always nice weather and not in a place that's like snowy half the year in parts of Canada. Like, I don't know. Make it make sense. I would love to have someone give me some kind of explanation someday. And if I ever get invited on another Subaru event, I swear I'm gonna just like let them have it and be like, what is going on? In the nicest way possible, to be like, listen, like, please help me understand. I'm going crazy here. Why do we not have these things? I mean, I'm disappointed at my other journalist friends for not bringing this up and just giving these people crap. Michelle says I'm gonna be raging. in my office real good after the stream. Yep, I'm gonna look up Chevy Montanas and be pounding my desk here. And Angel, thanks so much for being a member for 2 months now. I really appreciate it. He says, I'm sad about the end of the Legacy. I think you used to have a Legacy too, right? Any good memories you had with it? Yeah, I had a Legacy GT Spec B in 2006. I had it for about 5.5 years. That's actually right up there tied with a Bullet for the longest I ever owned a car for, which is disappointing that that's the longest I've ever owned a car for. But yeah, I love that Spec B. It was so cool. I miss that car a lot. Lots of good memories. I mean, I drove that car from my senior year of high school all the way up through college and beyond. And I mean, it's all the fun, packing it to the gills, driving down for college, and that thing, and being cool on campus with my blow off valve that I had on it and the loud exhaust, and so much fun. I mean, I went to Virginia Tech for college and got some good snows. The one year was a Snowmageddon or whatever, and getting to just go nuts in the Subaru with the snow tires and all the power of that thing. It was great. I absolutely love that car, and I'm sad about the end of the Legacy as well. That's another one that just didn't live up to its potential. Could have been so much more. I mean, I think for the masses, the Legacy was decently packaged. I just think that that's a vehicle where they shouldn't have turned their back on the enthusiast. Doing the XT in the touring trim wasn't enough. They should have done something sportier, and they did the sport XT at the very end here, but then by then it was too little too late. And the problem is they just set up Legacy to be such a safe and boring handler for this recent generation, and it wasn't fun to take around corners. And so I mean, you can watch my Legacy review from, I don't know, probably 5 or 6 years ago now. It didn't handle nearly as fun as any of the other competitors. Everything else is more fun to drive than Legacy in that segment. And it's a shame because, again, they made fantastic stuff, with my generation Legacy. Even the following generation was a little more blobby and a little more bland, but they still had a manual with the turbo motor there with the Legacy GT for that, other generation of it. And then, after that, they just went so soft and boring with it. And it should have always been a nice thing to step up from WRX into. And I think WRX just got more bloated instead and kind of bridged the gap and kind of took the place of Legacy GT and WRX at the same time with this, newer one. But I think there could have absolutely been the same, because we saw it in Japan for a while, the same kind of side by side. WRX and Legacy have, same kind of hardware, same kind of sportiness to them with sporty versions and all that. And then they could have just kept that going. They could have had Legacy STI after the Spec B. They could have, just everything WRX got in the past 15 years. There's no reason why Legacy couldn't have gotten all that. And they never bothered to, and so, but I think it would have been a nice, especially if they would have made Legacy a little bigger or stopped WRX from growing as much as it had. I think then you could have had, enough differentiation to say, okay, well, I'm outgrowing my WRX. I'm ready to jump up to the next thing. You go to Legacy. That's the way it worked for a while, in the 90s and the 2000s. And then, again, they just went too soft. And then anyone that was coming out of a WRX, they didn't see anything they liked with Legacy because, I mean, why would you? There wasn't really a whole lot there. And then they just had to go elsewhere, or, they just gave up on the sporty thing and they just went to an Outback or something like that. But I think there was potential there for sure. And it's a shame they just, again, did not give it the send off it deserved. And yeah, oh well, we'll see. I mean, I think obviously the sedan thing, that's probably down the drain, but they have all these cool other EVs coming out that I think are going to be, finally punchy, finally sporty, finally kind of address some of those concerns. I think that new Subaru Uncharted will kind of finally, fit the Colorado kind of buyer that, loses a lot of power in the higher elevations and wants something punchier than a regular slow cross track. I think, and also being an EV will be a great perk for Colorado since there's good, incentives there and stuff for that. So I think that the EVs are kind of fixing some of that. I know a lot of people aren't excited about that, but I think that, is as good as we're going to get as far as Subaru kind of addressing a little bit of the concerns, either intentionally or just by accident, because who knows, how they're running the ship there. But yeah, I'm excited. I think the Trail Seeker's going to be really solid. It's 375 horsepower. That should be really cool. I don't even care that they're based on Toyotas. It's just good to see again some more Subaru EVs. I think that's a thing that they've also misplayed. They could have been a forefront runner in EVs, because I think Subaru buyers especially. I mean, Subaru says, "Oh, we're the number one donor to the national parks and all this kind of stuff." And then the fact that they were so slow with bringing out hybrids, and they just now this year finally have these hybrids. And then you have just being so slow to the EV thing. No, I just think they've really, wasted a lot of their brand, customer loyalty. Those people, that said, okay, well, I want something fuel efficient. Subaru doesn't make anything, and they went off somewhere else, and now they're Toyota RAV4 hybrid drivers or whatever, Priuses, take your pick. But I think hopefully now Subaru's on the right track as far as, that part of their consumer base. But I think, again, for the enthusiasts, there's still a lot of work to be done. I mean, they still have BRZ, so, I can't beat up on them too badly, because they got a cooler sports car than most car companies offer, so, it's not all bad. But again, I think there's so many other things, easy money grabbers they could have that help finance some of this other more creative stuff they could do, like these fun legacies and stuff. You sell enough Bajas, you sell enough Turbo Cross Treks, you can justify with the bean counters, hey, maybe we should do a fun legacy, But anyway, I'll leave that tangent at that. But yeah, thanks so much for being a member, Angel. And yeah, hopefully the legacy maybe comes back someday in a cooler form. Who knows? And two says prison purse. Wait a minute, I thought the basement was bad. Right? Yeah, not as bad as prison or prison purse. And let me see. Also, where were we here? So Wheatman says, two says that they're still having issues with the V6. Interesting. I didn't realize that. I'll have to look into that. Wheatman says, have you attended the Monterey Car Week, and what are the top events to attend? I have never been. I'd love to go someday, but never been. I've been to Monterey. They have an amazing aquarium if you're going to be in the area and you haven't been there before. Monterey Aquarium is super cool. But yeah, other than that, have not been to the car show there. I mean, it sounds like all this, Pebble Beach and all that kind of stuff is cool. There's a few other little interesting, like lesser talked about events that they do. I don't remember them off the top of my head because I don't go to enough of that stuff. I mean, I'm sure, there's a lot of other info online, but I don't have any personal recommendations, unfortunately. Hopefully someday I get to go, because that'd be really cool for sure. And if you go, have a great time, and let us know how it is. And TFI says, got a recall done this week for my Mark 7 Golf related to the suction jet pump in the gas tank. Free inspection at the dealership, found a leaky thermostat under extended warranty, and got that for free. That's awesome. Because yeah, I think those they still have plastic thermostats in those Volkswagens, which is a bad idea. So many of these European companies, these plastic thermostats, and I'm just like, that was the downfall of the Mini. Whenever the Mini had its overheating issue, that was the plastic thermostat broke, and it's like, why was that ever a thing? But interesting. Well, I'm glad they're getting it all fixed up for you there. And yeah, recalls and extended warranty work is great. Get some free new parts in your car. That's nothing better than that, right? So glad they got that all fixed up for you. And Vishal says Mazda is also doing 1.9 APR for 69 months on, or 60 months on, I was going to say 69 months, nice. But for 60 months on CX90, 70, and I think 52. That's awesome. Yeah, I mean, a lot of these companies are really pushing hard for good interest rates. But again, they're paying for them and subsidizing, because as we've seen, there's no drop in interest rates. It's just that they've found that can be pretty effective, whenever money off kind of reaches its limit for some people. You tell them, oh, well, now you also get good incentives as far as interest rates. And then that gets a lot of people, off the sidelines and into the showroom there. And Vishal also says, a guy at my gym drives an early 2000s Audi A4 1.8T. Impressed. He's still committed to keeping it running, knowing how unreliable German cars were in that era. Yeah, and especially A4s. Yeah, because was that the B4s in the 90s were real bad, especially like B4 S4. I don't know how any of those are on the road anymore, because they were like really popular in the tuner culture, like around Fast and Furious time, the early 2000s, and then they just did not hold up, just reliability nightmares. And I remember even the not the current generation A4, but the one before that, also just so bad. And I'm glad that Audi's gotten better, but I mean, for a while they're just so unreliable with so many of those Audis. And it's I don't know how, because I mean, Volkswagens of that period weren't terrible, but for some reason Audi managed to screw up a lot of stuff around that time period, which is so bad. So I'm so glad that Audi has seemed to improve a lot recently. Michelle also says a vehicle named after a U.S. state, not sold in the U.S. Yeah, how does that make any sense? Yeah, well, I didn't even think of that part, but you're right. They literally are calling it the Montana, and that would play very well here. Yeah. Oh man, I so desperately want to ask more of these kinds of questions. That's one. At least I go to Chevy events every once in a while. So next time I'm at a Chevy event, I'm gonna say, so what's going on with Montana here? What's the holdup here? Please make it make sense. Yeah, TFI says, plastic thermostat, plastic water pump. Yeah, half of the EA888 is plastic Fisher Price type stuff. Interesting. Yeah, I know EA88 is really popular among tuners and stuff, but I heard also, some people have said that it still does have some issues, and especially the fact that it's not here in the States, at least, it's not both port and direct injected. It's still only direct injected. So, that can be problematic down the road and stuff. So, still not convinced about Volkswagen. And also the fact that Volkswagen reduced the powertrain warranty and just bundled it in with a longer bumper to bumper. Now it's just 4 years, 50,000 miles for everything. Also doesn't give me a lot of confidence. So, I mean, I'm hoping some of their stuff's, solid, but it makes me a little nervous. If you want a good warranty Volkswagen, you're going to go for an electric one because those are, 100,000 miles or whatever on the powertrain and the battery, or maybe it's even 150. I'm not sure, but regardless, the gas stuff, they're great. And, I've heard pretty good things about a lot of them. There's actually someone who just did a Volkswagen Atlas Crossport. I saw someone had one at auction with 250 or 300,000 miles on it, like a 2020 or something. Tons of miles. And it was still going really well. And actually a member who submitted his car for Member Car of the Week, I think either last year or early this year, has an Atlas with over 100,000 miles, and they're doing really well with it. So, maybe a lot of them are really, reliable, especially if you maintain it well. But I just don't love the fact they don't back it up with a warranty, that's this long. CB Mitchell says Monterey is great for the first few years, but after about 8 years, I started burning out. There's way too many things going on at the same time, and it's difficult to get around the area. Yeah, and the other thing too, as cool as it is to have the car companies always, promoting their own stuff there, I think, and I'm sure B. Mitchell he was there before all the manufacturer bloat that it now has, but I feel like it used to be more of an old school kind of vintage and high end kind of car show, and now it's Acura's got a booth there, and it's how many people in Monterey care about Acura? I don't know, but they have a big whole thing and they're reviewing, stuff every year there. And, you have all these car companies doing their own little mini auto show. And I mean, I get it. It's a lot of people and a lot of people with a lot of money. So, you desperately want to try and, get stuff in front of them and get them to experience your product. But, it's just, it seems like it's gotten really bloated. I'm sure it's amazing. It's just, you're right. There's probably so much to see. Definitely give yourself the full week if you can. I see Angel saying buy a 5th gen Legacy 3.6R, reliable and sounds like a Porsche with headers and exhaust. Yeah, they're cool, the 3.6R. I know there's another one or two people on here that were members that also had the Legacies and had the 6-cylinder, and it seems like it's pretty cool there. I've never driven one with any kind of exhaust mods to hear one of those exhausts in person on the 6-cylinder, but it's pretty sweet to get a flat 6 in something that's not a Porsche. He says, I have a 2017 right now. I'm looking to change it, but the wife wants an SUV. May have to wait. Yeah, well, I mean, if you like the new one, definitely, obviously, your time is running out here. But I mean, if you're enjoying that, I mean, if she likes an SUV, if she's happy with an Outback, that kind of it's still, until we get to the new one here coming, later this year, it still is a lifted legacy wagon, so I mean that could maybe be a nice compromise that might work okay for you. But an Outback is very good. I mean, the turbo one kind of annoys me with the tuning, but the naturally aspirated one, it's slow, but it's a fine vehicle still. And also, B Mitchell says, yeah, Monterey car because expensive, 500 to $5,000 a night for hotels is the norm to start. You'll need to, yeah. So I mean, yeah, Monterey. I do know a few people who, I don't really talk to them too much anymore, but they used to, or they do go to Monterey every week or every year. Sorry. And yeah, I know like the one guy, he would be leaving and checking out of his hotel, and that's when he would book for the following year at whatever the top hotel is, because it's like super hard to get into, and you got to have tons and tons of money, but like they were booking it a year out, like booked fully, like it's crazy. So yeah, definitely got to be hard to find a place to stay nearby if you're not local. And also, B. Mitchell says you'll need that long warranty for an ID4. My buddy is still waiting for his to come back from the dealer for new batteries and front motor. That's crazy. He's having bad luck with it, because there's also, it's always just kind of luck of the draw. I've seen some high mileage ID4s as well out there. So yeah, it's just kind of strange how that works sometimes. I think, you're going to get a little bit of that with these new tech things of, you're going to get a few more duds probably than, other stuff that's more proven and more, just a known quantity. These things are a little bit newer now. So hopefully, especially with the second gen ID4 here, the new motors they've gotten in the past year or two, hopefully that'll, be a little bit more solid. But it's crazy. Your buddy's still waiting on his replacement stuff there. And I see Digifex says, you are saying Volkswagen, WTF. Yeah, that's what I've always said. I guess it's what Volkswagen is, if I want to try to do a German impression, is the way you're supposed to say it. I don't say it like I'm a German. Maybe I should, but yeah, Porsche is the only one where I actually say it in the German pronunciation, I suppose, instead of saying Porsche like so many people here in the States do. That does bother me, especially because like Porsche actually did like a video being like, here's how you say it. But with Volkswagen, I mean, I've listened to Volkswagen executives like presenting to us, and I don't think they're saying it any differently than I am, but maybe I'm just not hearing it. I don't know. But Vishal says, still irks me with Volkswagen reducing powertrain coverage. Didn't even know they did that till I was buying my Jetta. I assumed it was 5 year 60,000 like it was for our Passat. Yeah, it was weird. They even did the 6 year 72,000 mile for a while there. And then they, walked that back little by little and then just kept dropping it. And I mean, yeah, it doesn't say good things about your long-term, brand reliability if you're walking back your warranty. It just, I mean, even like Toyota, who doesn't need the warranty most of the time, I mean, even they do 5 year 60,000, so I mean, yeah, it just seems kind of weird. Let me see. So TFI says that the aftermarket fixed a lot of the EA888 Gen 3 problems. You can pretty much replace any plastic part with metal and rubber with polyurethane. Well, that's good to hear, but it's also disappointing. You got to go to the aftermarket to fix your new car. That's always been like a real sore spot for me. I know a lot of people like tinkering and making things their own and stuff, and maybe it's just, saving yourself a headache down the road. But like, you shouldn't have to fix a car that's brand new. Like, I mean, you shouldn't have to improve the design of the parts. They should be good from the factory. You're paying a lot of money for a brand new car. It's not like you're, if this is some old thing, it's different. But like when you're talking about a brand new car and you have to do a bunch of preventative maintenance on it and like replace stuff because Volkswagen cut corners, like that's just, to me, that's a complete turnoff. That's a complete buzzkill. Like, and I know there's people like to tinker, and I know I saw plenty of this whenever I posted my Golf R review, and people were so pissed off at my take on that car. But like, it's the same thing with that. Like, oh, well, you can fix it in this way or that way, or there's this excuse or that excuse for why it'll get better with time. The transmission will learn you. The transmission isn't supposed to be fast in lower RPMs. I mean, I heard every excuse in the book here whenever I complained about the Golf R. But it's like all these things of like, well, you can, make this excuse or that excuse, or you can fix this, you can fix that. And it's like, it's just like, go to other brands. A lot of these things you don't have to fix. Some other things you do need to fix. GR Corolla has its weaknesses. WRX has things that can be improved. There's certainly a lot of that, but like, there's so many other brands where you don't have to fix things when you buy a brand new car. You just drive it and enjoy a well-engineered product from the factory. So I mean, maybe I just have a higher standard, or again, some people just like tinkering, but like for me, I don't want to mess with a brand new car. I'm buying it because it's new and I want to just drive it and not think about it from a reliability or oily bit kind of standpoint. I just want to not have to worry about my brand new engine. So but it's good there are fixes in the aftermarket, and I guess the aftermarket is very thankful that Volkswagen continues to cut corners, as do, again, other companies too. It's funny. And he also says reliability mods are plentiful on the Mark 7 platform. It's just crazy. Modify your car to make it more reliable. Typically, mods make it less reliable, but it's like, yeah, you got to do reliability mods. It's kind of, I don't know. To me, it's just kind of crazy. I see Wheatman says he got an invite from BMW to drive some cars at Monterey, and it'll be a short day trip from Sacramento. That'll still be my first visit. That's awesome. I hope you have a blast. That's awesome that they invited you to drive some cars. That's really fun. I see TFI says that Hyundai and Mitsubishi got rid of the 10-year warranty in Canada. Interesting. I hadn't heard that. So did they go down? Is it now 5-year 60 like everybody else, or is it like 8-year or something? I hadn't heard that. That's surprising. Mitsubishi still has the 10-year. Yeah, Mitsubishi still, I know people like to give them crap too, but an Outlander with that 10-year warranty, I don't know why anyone buys a Rogue, because Outlander is nicer in every single way. It's basically the same price, and you get a longer warranty. Like, why? I mean, I know some people maybe just don't like the styling, or you don't have a Mitsubishi dealer close to you. But if you have a Mitsubishi dealer near you and you're fine with the styling, like, why is anyone buying a Rogue? Because the Outlander's the same bones and just better in all the ways. I think Mitsubishi, that's another one I'm talking about earlier, companies to take over. Why Mitsubishi didn't get to take every single thing from their alliances that they could, and instead we got this stale lineup. It makes no sense. Another just real head scratcher there. I see B. Mitchell's giving his thoughts here about Monterey for a day. I'm sure it'll be a lot, but hopefully you still have some fun there for sure. So TFI says now they're 5 years, 62,000 miles. Okay, so 5 years, 60. It's the same kind of thing here as everybody else in the States. Gotcha. Well, that's I know Hyundai's getting killed with some of the warranty claims on some of these older motors that have had their very famous issues with. But the way you restore confidence is not walking back your warranty coverage. Someone else recommended, I think, who was it? Well, I mean, we saw Ram, doing their longer warranty as well as a way to, again, kind of give that confidence again. But there's someone else that I think was talking recently about, like, if you're worried about reliability for your brand, like, make your warranty longer. It's the best way to send a big, giant, flashing sign to everyone that I have confidence in the engineering of my product. Like, it's kind of, especially since people are holding onto cars longer and longer. I think long warranties are more and more important than ever. And I think that's also part of Hyundai's secret sauce, Hyundai and Kia, for their success is the long warranty. In addition to, again, having fresh, compelling product, unlike Mitsubishi. But I think with Hyundai, like, if the average car on the road is 12.6 years now and continuing to climb, then, everyone is, expecting to keep their car for that 10 years or longer in many cases. You want to have that coverage there. You don't want to be worried about having to spend $3,000 to $6,000 on a new engine, in 10 years or something. And so the fact that you can have that coverage is great, and not have to pay extra for it with some kind of extended warranty or something either. So I think you would think that car companies would want to do a longer warranty. I know it's expensive, because I'm sure they get, more claims that way, but like, that's, I think, a trend that would be smart to hop on as you see, again, everyone, having their cars longer and longer. And TFI says, anyone remember when Car Bros snuck a Ferrari kit car into Monterey Car Week? I do vaguely remember that. It's been a long time. Was that the like F40 looking thing that was really crazy, or was it something else? I don't know. Do the Car Bros still do stuff? Their videos used to be so funny. But I don't know if they've done anything recently. Maybe I'm just out of the loop on their stuff, but hopefully they're still out there doing well and doing funny stuff. I need to look them up here sometime soon. Well, I see we've actually kind of run out of comments and questions here. We're almost at the 2-hour mark. If anyone has anything else they want to chime in on here before the end, but I mean, the whole night here, we were able to answer every single question. I think this is a first. I'm very happy we were able to get to everybody's stuff here. So Michelle says, also seems like some brands reduce complimentary maintenance. Honda went down to 1 year and Hyundai isn't offering it at all for 2026 models. Interesting. I think someone else, who else does complimentary maintenance? I think Toyota does, right? I think there's somebody else. I could have sworn I was just seeing this recently, but who else does complimentary maintenance? I think what it is I think BMW does it. I think Audi does it now too, if I remember, and Mercedes doesn't. I remember there's been some kind of thing with, I think, those three where one of them doesn't do it and the other two do, and it kind of makes the others look bad. But let me see here. Okay, we got a few more questions here to round out our time. So I see TFI says, I appreciated the MX-5 POV. I'm glad you liked it. And thank you all for the feedback on that too. Again, I really hope that those do kind of, I mean, they're doing decently views-wise, but I do hope that continues to be something that does get views, because it's really fun. And I mean, obviously I'm biased, but I think having that kind of take on it is kind of nice. I think I've probably said this before, so I won't go too much into this, but I think there's a lot of people that do talking POVs, and that certainly has its place, and it's very impressive. And honestly, I'm kind of, just the people who can remember all that stuff off the top of their head without having to cut. Like I sometimes, I'm cutting in the video and I'm, checking back at my notes and refreshing my memory about this spec or that spec. The fact that you can just go to like a one take POV and, get the whole review done or whatever is really impressive. But I think, in these crazy times we're living in, being able to like pull up a video of just a relaxing summer evening drive with no one yapping, just silence, hearing the cicadas here in PA, just hearing the engine sounds, the drive sounds, and just that calm, peaceful, like non-stimulating kind of video, I think is just, especially for me, I know I'm so like, machine gun with my words and constantly rapid fire here with talking and everything. And I think it's a nice switch to kind of balance out, like, okay, he was talking a mile a minute in that video. Now I can watch this one and decompress and just have a relaxing, quiet, drive. But I think, a lot of people, I think, are looking for something that's solace, that's just, a little bit of a non-triggering thing with all the triggering stuff that I'm sure is in all of our feeds these days. I hope it's just kind of a breath of fresh air for a lot of people. So we'll see, but I'm happy with how they've done so far. And again, hopefully with the little improvements I can make, it can get better and better here. And Hyper Shadow, thanks so much for being a member for 8 months now. I really appreciate it. He says, Mateus Marinelius, I hope you have an awesome night tonight and have a POV driving dream, but in the Need for Speed Underground 2 world. That's awesome. Yeah, man, I'd love to play that game again, but I will play it in my dreams. That's a great idea for a dream tonight. Yeah, man, Underground 2, I was... Maybe I'm just getting old, but man, I'm so nostalgic for that time period, and man, what good times. And you can just like literally cruise around a virtual world in your modified whatever, open world, just street racing whoever, having a blast. That was just such a good game. And it's so, I saw, whenever there's people reacting to this news about, there not being any new Need for Speed games, and people are like, literally just make us another Underground, like just make Underground 3. That's what everyone wants. It's not hard. Like do a rip off of Forza Horizon and make Underground 3. Like I don't know who's running. Sorry, I know this is probably getting real old at this point, but like all these executives, like what are they doing? Whether we're talking car company executives, video game executives, movie executives, even. I mean, just the complete lack of creativity in some areas, like, you want to see more creativity in movies instead of a zillion iterations of the same crap. And then, with video games, it's like, well, why don't you just apply that and make another sequel? And they don't want to do that. And they want to try and be the ones that are original and creative. And it's like, no, like, you both have it wrong. You need to do more creative movies. And if people are clearly begging for Underground 3, just make Underground 3. Like, why is again, especially considering some of these ideas for some of these Need for Speed games, they're so reaching, and it's like, it's like they're just trying to copy the latest or the latest Fast and Furious movie or whatever, and it's like, just go back to the well. If you're struggling, you can't find your way as far as what to do next. Like, no one's gonna get mad at you for making another thing off one of your greatest hits. Like, I don't know. I think even if it's unoriginal and you might have a few critics that complain about it or something, like, that would be the commercial success, is just do that. Even a remaster, like, make a remaster. I think there's even enough nostalgia there for all the cars that are in Underground 2. Even just Underground 2 in like 4K remastered, even if you really want to be lazy and just phone it in with that, I think even that would do pretty well these days, just putting it on a modern console and all that. I appreciate all the hearts and the love there. But I don't know if it's just like, an age thing or what the deal is with so many of these executives that just are seeming completely disconnected, or the decision makers. Maybe it's not the executives, or whoever it is that's, saying yes or no to these ideas. I do not understand how all this stuff, is, I don't know, maybe I'm just crazy and these are bad ideas, but it all seems to make sense to me, and hopefully to some of you as well. But anyway, I appreciate that. I appreciate the reactions there, everyone. And let me see here. Last few questions, we'll wind it down. So let me see. Angel says, I had a 2017 Santa Fe. The engine blew up in 2022. Hyundai took over 6 months to fix it under the recall. After that, the engine would flash. To this day, they don't know what to do. Stay away. That's crazy. So yeah, was that one of the Theta 2 engines, I think, was the one that's problematic. I have heard that Hyundai is slow with warranty coverage a lot, which, I don't understand. Again, I mean, maybe it's just strictly a marketing thing for them, but like, if you're not actually backing it up, then yeah, you're burning your bridges, and it's a dead end street. If you're getting all these people excited about that coverage, then you don't provide good coverage. Yeah, that's not great, for sure. So I'm sorry you had a bad experience. And it's another one of those things that's just so fickle, because then, like, I see Hyundais that have gone long miles. There's even another person who comes into these live streams often who has, I think they said their mom has a Sorrento that's like over 200 or 300,000 miles, still going strong. It's just like, it's one of the things you never know. It's so strange how there's these wide variances sometimes. Some people just do genuinely get a lemon, and that's why we have lemon laws. And this is why you have warranty coverage, is to fix some of those flukes that, get out of the factory somehow. But whenever, 6 months to fix it. I mean, I know, especially these days, there are still, some supply chain things that just never recovered from COVID all the way. And some stuff where it's just, it's hard to sometimes still get some parts. We see this in the auto body world still, and stuff with fixing crash damage can take a long time still too. So there are some of those things, even despite maybe Hyundai's best intentions, where it's just they can't get stuff for whatever reason. But yeah, it's still crappy either way. Hopefully they took care of you at least with a good loaner or something in the meantime, or at least a nice rental. But that's crazy. And Decepticon says, hey, Matt, favorite James Bond film? Casino Royale for me is definitely my favorite, possibly because it was, I think it was kind of like peak formative years, as far as like, that was really like, that came out when I was 16. So like, very much like, a prime time to latch on to one of the new Bond and, the new movies. But so I'd say Casino Royale, followed probably by Skyfall. Some of the classic ones are pretty good too, but yeah, for me, the Daniel Craig ones are still my favorite. And I actually like all the Daniel Craig ones. I know some people love to hate on Quantum of Solace and Spectre. And I know some people are really pissed about No Time to Die. I was one of those people as well. I've kind of made my peace with it. I won't spoil it for anyone who hasn't seen it, but the ending really was really disappointing and lazy to me. I can sit here for another 20 minutes to explain how the ending just like really, it's like they were just wanting to end it that way, and it didn't really make a whole lot of sense to me because me being this problem solver. I'm like, well, you could have done this, you could have done this, you could have done this, but even though that was disappointing, I still think No Time to Die is a fun ride, and I still really enjoyed the other 95% of the movie. So even that one I still like a lot. But yeah, Daniel Craig's my favorite Bond personally. And we'll see what they do with this new one. It's starting to slowly get this info on the writers and the producers and stuff. I hope it turns out to be okay. I'm very nervous with Amazon shoving out the original, or not the original, but the caretakers that have been running the show for a long time here. So we'll see what happens. But yeah, it's I will be excited to see any kind of new Bond content, though. Even hopefully, if it's not too disappointing, if it's even just mediocre, I'll be okay with it, I think. But TFI says, for anyone wanting to kick tires or test drive cars for fun, do it at the beginning of the month so you don't piss off the salesman. I agree. That's a good idea for sure. And let me see. Theodore says, why does it seem like Chevy doesn't care about its cars like the SS? No commercials, no movies, what? Yeah, I agree. SS, it sounded like they just didn't want it to sell a whole lot because they just needed to kind of fulfill a quota of certain amount of cars, and that's it. But yeah, it's a shame they didn't, do more with any of this stuff. Malibu, they could have done a little bit more to jazz it up, and just, no interest, it seems. I don't know. I wish I had a better answer. It's just, it's a mystery to me. I see Michelle says Volkswagen offers 2 years for complimentary maintenance. Some cars add a third year on the window sticker. Interesting. My Jetta has 3 years. That's cool. That's really nice, actually. And Vishal says the windows down idea has grown on me for the POV drives. Also interesting to see the scenery around PA as someone who doesn't live there. That's cool. I'm glad, hopefully enjoying it. And like the Miata, like it was like basically a full moon too. It was nice and low. I don't know. The camera quality, again, probably didn't have the dynamic range to really pick out. But I mean, like you could see the craters on the moon. Like it was like a beautiful night for a drive with that Miata there. And yeah, I'm glad the windows down idea has grown on you. I know a lot of people wanted windows up, and I've been doing a little bit of combination of both, like I did in the Passport POV. And I think that is good because I think it is good to show, here's what it's like, road noise wise and stuff. So I think everyone kind of had the right idea and the suggestions there to, do some windows down, some windows up, and just switch back and forth a little bit throughout the video there. So I think that's what I'm going to be doing here, for everything else going forward. That's not a convertible, obviously. And let me see, Hyper Shadows, yeah, saying good times there. I agree. Yeah. See, Angel says he's going to be joining us here with my Mustang GT with horrible Spider-Man colors. Man, yeah, that's yeah. So many of those questionable mods you were able to do back then in those games is so funny. And Decepticon says, yeah, I watched it yesterday at Casino Royale and watched Skyfall today. That's awesome. Yeah, I wish I had more time to watch all my movies I have up there. Collecting dust. I used to watch them so regularly, and then now I'm just so busy and being a dad and everything. It's just hard to find time to watch all your favorite movies. But yeah, so many good ones. And TFI says, I'm looking forward to the new 007 game coming out next year. Yeah, that looks good. Yeah, First Light or whatever. It's made by the same studio that does the Hitman franchise. Yeah, I'm excited for that. I probably won't play it until, I don't know, another 10 years from now or something, but it looks really cool. I'm excited, that they're doing that, and it seems promising. And also, I also liked, because I do sometimes have time to watch TV shows. They have the 007 Road to a Million or whatever, where they go to some of the filming locations and do some challenges, kind of like Amazing Race style, if you ever watched that. And that's actually a pretty cool show. We enjoyed the first season of it. And so another little bit of new Bond content here while we wait for the new movie to cook. But let me see. B. Mitchell says 2+ hours and Gio Corolla not mentioned a new record. And I did mention it about the plastic part there, but saying how even Gio Corolla has some shortcomings. So you missed one opportunity to drink here tonight, B. Mitchell. Apologies. But you're right. That's about as close as I got to not mentioning Gio Corolla in a live stream. You're right. And yeah, he says better drink and catch up. Well, cheers. But anyway, thank you all so much for joining in here on the live. Hope you guys enjoyed it as much as I did here. Have a great week. I'll see you on Wednesday for the next live and some more good content here. And we'll stay tuned. You know, it sounds like Ford's got their big announcement tomorrow for their new big Model T moment. They're saying supposedly with whatever this new EV is that they have coming out. So I don't know if I'll have a video up in time for that or not. I may not even cover it depending on what they end up actually doing because I have no clue what they're doing. They haven't given us any info ahead of time. So we'll see, but I'm curious to see what that is going to be. But yeah, it should be a good week here in the car world. Those of you who are members, stay tuned. I'll also be posting tomorrow morning the review I decided to post for tomorrow and the car that I went out and filmed here now that I'm kind of running low on press cars recently. So stay tuned for that. Anyway, thank you all so much for watching. Have a great week. I'll see you guys in the next one. Take care.